Good morning, welcome to Breakfast with Naga Manchetti and Charlie State.
Our headlines today, reassuring the public that the Oxford-AstraZeneca vaccine is safe. Government ministers urge people to come forward to get their jabs after a potential link to extremely rare blood clots.
The jabs are safe, they're effective, and they're working to help us get out of this pandemic.
It comes as scientists say a new study shows the vaccination rollout in England is breaking the link between coronavirus infections and deaths.
A bus is hijacked and set on fire in another night of trouble in Northern Ireland. Prime Minister Boris Johnson says he's deeply concerned by the violence.
I'm with 9-week-old Berkshire piglets. Let's find out why they're in decline and how to keep them going.
Good morning. Today is cloudy, blustery but mild. There's also rain in the forecast, the heaviest of which is across the northwest. Here too we've got the strongest winds. This mild weather is not going to last though, and I'll have all the details in about 10 minutes.
Good morning to you. It's Thursday, the 8th of April. Ministers are urging people to have full confidence in the COVID vaccination programme. It follows a change in guidelines about the AstraZeneca jab from the official regulator, the MHRA.
So let's remind ourselves of just what those changes are. From now on, people aged between 18 and 29 will be offered an alternative to the Oxford-AstraZeneca jab.
But those who've already had a first dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine should go ahead and take the second. Now, pregnant people and people with certain blood disorders should consult their doctor for advice.
A little earlier on Breakfast, the Deputy Chairman of the Joint Committee on Vaccination and Immunisation, that's Professor Anthony Harnden, told us the timescale of the vaccination rollout will not be affected.
We're not immunising the majority of under 30-year-olds at the moment, and we will not get to them for a number of weeks. So the vaccination programme is going full steam ahead. Everybody should remain confident in it. What we're seeing is a very, very rare, extremely rare safety signal, which is coming out of the regulators.
Now, we can get more now from our chief political correspondent, Adam Fleming. Adam, morning to you. So, making it really clear that the vaccination programme isn't going to change. But what so many people are concerned about as well is the roadmap out of lockdown the government's laid out, and how perhaps if the vaccine rollout changes or is even slightly tweaked, how that will affect the overall easing.
Well, you're right that one of the factors that affects the speed of the roadmap is how the vaccination programme is going. But this change is not a big enough change to affect that. So as far as the government is concerned, the roadmap is still on track. The next phase of the unlocking of the lockdown in England is due next Monday. Then there's another phase in the middle of May and another one towards the end of June. The other thing the government is adamant that is not affected by any of this is their targets for the vaccine programme overall. So remember, that first target is for the top 9 priority groups, the over 50s, the clinically vulnerable, people who work in the health services, for they to be offered a first jab by the end of next week, and then for every other adult in England to be offered their first dose by the end of July. Matt Hancock, the health secretary, says that does not change, even though now we know there are 8.5 million unvaccinated under 30s who may now have a different choice of what vaccine to take. Here's how the health secretary explained it.
The maths is that there are 10.1 million people aged between 18 and 29 in this country, in the UK, and 1.6 million of them have already been vaccinated because either they're care workers or they might be clinically extremely vulnerable. That leaves around 8.5 million people, and we have more than enough Pfizer and Moderna vaccine so that if all of them get that jab, then we'll be able to ensure everybody can get it, and it doesn't impact on the speed of the rollout.
Just what you want at this time of the morning, a big old maths lesson from the health secretary. But the point he's making there is a pretty simple one. It's that there are enough doses that no matter what people in that age group choose to do as a result of this change to the advice, things should be fine. What's interesting about that is an on-the-record pledge from a government minister. So if there are issues that emerge in a few weeks or a few months' time, well, then that provides a little bit of a problem for the government, doesn't it?
Just a little bit. Adam, thanks very much. Adam Fleming there, our chief political correspondent.
Scientists tracking coronavirus in England say the vaccination programme is beginning to break the link between COVID-19 cases and deaths.
So the latest REACT study by Imperial College London, which involved analysing more than 140,000 people's swab tests between the 11th and 30th of March, found that infections had fallen by roughly 2/3 since February.
Let's have a look at some of the problems facing in Northern Ireland at the moment. A bus we know has been hijacked and set on fire. Another night of trouble in Northern Ireland. Prime Minister Boris Johnson saying he's deeply concerned by some of the violent scenes there. Let's speak to our Ireland correspondent, Chris Page, who's in Belfast for us. Chris, just talk us through what has been happening most recently, also some of the reaction.
Yes, Charlie. Well, what is causing particular concern about the violence last night is that it happened at a peace line, so-called, a wall that separates communities on either side of the political divide, if you like, in West Belfast between the Loyalist Shankle Road and the mainly Republican Springfield Road area. Now, a bus was hijacked, as you say, and set on fire. The violence started on the Loyalist side, but then there was sustained trouble with petrol bombs and other missiles being thrown to and fro across that peace line. So ministers in the devolved government will be meeting today to get a briefing from police on the trouble of recent days. Prior to last night, the violence was focused on Loyalist areas, and there have been a number of factors at play. Loyalists have for some months been feeling very uneasy, police have said, about some of the aspects of the Brexit arrangements for Northern Ireland. In particular, they see it as creating a new trade border between Northern Ireland and the rest of the UK, something which they feel undermines their sense of British identity that they feel very strongly. Also last week, renewed anger that prosecutors didn't take action against senior Sinn Féin politicians for alleged breaches of coronavirus restrictions at the funeral of a former leading IRA man last summer. So there is quite a complex picture as regards to the motivations, if you like, of the rioters. Whenever politicians in the Stormont Assembly come together today, recalled from the Easter break, to debate a motion condemning the violence, we can expect them to have differing opinions as to exactly what is the root cause of this rioting, but we can also expect them to be united in calls for the disruption and destruction to stop.
Chris, thank you very much.
A body found in a pond in Essex has been confirmed as London student Richard Okorogeye. The 19-year-old who had sickle cell disease hadn't been seen by his family since he left their home in Ladbroke Grove in London on the 22nd of March. Police said his death was being treated as unexplained and that they believe that no one else was involved.
Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab has accused Myanmar's military regime of bullying after the country's UK ambassador was locked out of his embassy in London. Chor Swan Min says he slept in his car last night after he was stopped from entering the building in Mayfair and told he was no longer Myanmar's representative.
See the headlines as they happen and watch BBC News live in the app and get the full story with bbc.co.uk/news. Follow the story for all the latest with BBC News.